Alan Carter rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the monitor. The blue light of the screen illuminated his worried face in the otherwise dimly lit communications lab at the United Stellar Communications Agency headquarters. Something wasn't right with the incoming signals. "You're overthinking it again," Olivia Wright said, sliding the cup of coffee across the desk to him. "The Centaurians always have transmission fluctuations during their solar storms." Alan shook his head. "It's not just them. Look at these readings from the past week." He pulled up a chart showing declining signal strength across all 7 alien communication channels. "Every single species we talk to is getting fainter." Olivia leaned in, her casualness fading as she examined the data. "Could be a hardware issue on our end. I've checked. Twice." Alan sipped the coffee, grimacing at its bitterness. "And it's not just us. Beijing, New Delhi, and the European stations are all reporting the same pattern." The year was 2150, and humanity had spent the last 30 years in regular contact with 7 different alien civilizations. The discovery that Earth wasn't alone had transformed human society, bringing nations together and accelerating technological development. Now, that connection appeared to be fraying. Over the next 3 weeks, Alan barely left the communications center. He watched with growing dread as each alien signal became weaker day by day. The Arcturians from Proxima Centauri faded first, followed by the mathematically precise Melosians. One by one, the voices of the stars dimmed until, on a quiet Tuesday morning, the final transmission from the Vega system cut to silence. The stars had gone quiet. USCA Director Frank Bennett called an emergency meeting that same day. The large conference room buzzed with anxiety as specialists from every department gathered. "I want answers, people," Bennett said, his voice tight with tension. 7 advanced civilizations don't just stop talking simultaneously without a reason. Could it be a natural phenomenon we don't understand? Asked Sam Wilson, head of astrophysics. Lisa Martinez, the agency's lead xenolinguist, shook her head. The final transmissions contained no warnings about natural events. They were routine communications, hostile action. Someone suggested from the back of the room. Alan cleared his throat. "I've been analyzing the pattern of signal degradation." He projected his findings onto the main screen. It wasn't random. Each civilization's communications faded in a controlled, gradual manner, almost like they were hanging up the phone. Olivia finished. A heavy silence fell over the room. "They left us," Alan said quietly. "All of them. They didn't die or get attacked. They chose to disconnect." That night, as news of the silence spread across Earth, Alan stayed late, reviewing the final days of transmissions. He noticed something he'd missed before: subtle patterns embedded in the seemingly routine messages. When isolated and compared across all 7 alien languages, they formed what appeared to be a coordinated sequence. Alan's hands trembled as he organized the data. The aliens hadn't just randomly decided to cut contact. They had planned this together, coordinating their withdrawal across dozens of light years. The question that kept him awake until dawn wasn't how they had done it, but why. What had humanity done, or what did they think we might do, that made 7 diverse civilizations decide that silence was better than continued conversation? As the first light of morning crept through the windows, Alan knew finding that answer would become his life's work. 5 years had passed since the stars went silent. Earth had changed in that time. The initial panic gave way to a quieter, more determined response as humanity grappled with its apparent rejection by the cosmos. Alan Carter no longer rubbed his eyes from late nights studying communications data. Now he did it from long days leading the Special Investigation Task Force on Extraterrestrial Silence, nicknamed the Listeners by the media. His office walls were covered with charts, alien language samples, and star maps marked with the home systems of their former conversational partners. "The UN Security Council is getting impatient," said Lisa Martinez as she entered his office, holding a tablet with the latest funding reports. Once just a xenolinguist, She now served as Alan's second-in-command. They're questioning whether we need another deep space listening array. Alan looked out his window at the massive dish antennas already dotting the New Mexico landscape. Tell them we need 3 more. And approval for the quantum entanglement experiments Jack's team proposed. Lisa sighed. They want results, Alan. It's been 5 years. And it might be 50 more before we understand what happened, he replied, turning back to his desk where fragments of the final alien transmissions were displayed. But we're getting closer. The task force had grown to over 200 specialists. Jack Peterson led the quantum physics division, developing new theories about faster-than-light communication. Nicole Adams and her team of AI specialists worked day and night analyzing patterns in the historical alien dialogues, searching for missed warnings or clues. That afternoon, the team gathered in the central lab where Nicole stood before a holographic display. We've been analyzing all communications dating back to first contact, she explained, her voice betraying excitement despite her professional demeanor. The AI identified subtle shifts in linguistic patterns from all 7 species, beginning approximately 3 Earth years before the silence. The display showed communication frequency graphs with highlighted sections marking changes. They started asking different questions. Alan observed. Exactly. Nicole nodded. Less about our science and arts, more about our history. Wars, resource usage, military capabilities, population growth rates. Jack frowned. They were assessing us. Like we were being evaluated, Lisa added, studying the translations. Alan directed their attention to another screen. We also managed to reconstruct parts of their final messages by combining fragments across multiple transmissions. Each civilization sent pieces of what appears to be a larger statement. The screen displayed the assembled message, still incomplete. Observation period concluded. Consensus reached. Coalition determination. Humanity's true nature. Potential threat to stability. Withdrawal protocol initiated. The Veil engaged. They were afraid of us, Lisa whispered. But why? Jack asked. We shared knowledge, art, mathematics. We showed them our best side. Alan pulled up historical archives showing war footage, environmental disasters, and weapons tests. Did we? Or did they dig deeper than the showcase materials we transmitted? What if they found our full history? Nichols' AI assistant interrupted with a notification. New pattern identified. Cross-referencing alien transmissions with Earth broadcasts during the same period shows they were receiving signals we didn't send them. The room went quiet as everyone processed this revelation. They were watching our news broadcasts, Alan said softly. Our entertainment. Our unfiltered selves. Lisa studied the data. The timing matches. Their questions changed after they started receiving these signals. Then the silence wasn't just about cutting communication, Alan concluded. It was a deliberate, coordinated decision by all 7 civilizations. They observed us, judged us, and decided we were too dangerous to engage with. As the team dispersed to pursue this new angle, Alan remained alone in the lab, staring at the final message fragment they'd decoded. The Veil engage. Whatever this veil was, Alan knew one thing with growing certainty. The aliens hadn't just stopped talking. They were hiding from humanity. The massive spaceship UES Discovery hung in Earth orbit, its sleek hull gleaming in the sunlight. Through a viewport, Alan Carter watched the blue planet below, wondering if he would ever see it again. At 62, he had never expected to become an astronaut. Yet here he was, part of humanity's boldest response to the silence. Final checks complete. All systems green, announced Captain Susan Miller over the ship's communication system. Her voice carried the practiced calm of someone who had trained for this mission for the past 7 years. The Voyager initiative represented Earth's unified determination to find answers. 5 ships, each carrying the best scientists and explorers humanity could offer, would travel to the home systems of their former alien contacts. The Discovery, headed for Proxima Centauri, where the Arturians had once lived, carried the heaviest burden of expectation. Alan made his way to the bridge where the crew was preparing for departure. The ship utilized experimental warp technology, developed partly from concepts shared by the aliens before the silence. The journey would take 3 years instead of decades. Having second thoughts, Lisa asked. Though in her 50s now, her eyes still held the same sharp curiosity that had made her invaluable to the investigation. "Not about going," Alan replied. "I'm worried about what we'll find." Captain Miller approached them. The UN Secretary General is about to make the send-off address. The view screens activated, showing the face of Secretary General Howard. "Today marks a turning point in human history," he began. 10 years ago, our cosmic neighbors fell silent. We could have accepted this rejection and turned inward. Instead, we chose to reach out. The Voyager initiative carries not just our questions, but our hope. Safe journey to all crews, and remember, you carry the spirit of Earth with you. 3 hours later, the Discovery activated its warp drive. The stars stretched into lines of light, and Earth vanished behind them. The journey gave the crew time to study everything known about the Arcturians. Alan spent hours each day reviewing their communications, searching for anything they might have missed. 6 months into the voyage, Nicole made a breakthrough with her specialized AI systems. "I've been analyzing the final transmissions from the Arcturians again," she explained during the daily briefing. "There's a pattern in the background radiation that doesn't match natural phenomena." Jack leaned forward. "What kind of pattern?" "It's artificially generated, like a signal disguised to look like background noise," Nicole replied. "And it's consistent across multiple transmissions." Captain Miller frowned. "Could it be some form of encryption?" "I think it's more basic than that," Nicole said. "I believe it's a power signature, evidence of massive energy use right before the silence." Alan's heart beat faster. They were building something. In the final months of their journey, the Discovery's long-range sensors began picking up readings from the Proxima Centauri system. Previous Earth observations had shown the Arcturian homeworld was a thriving planet with artificial structures visible even from a distance. But now, "I don't understand," Jack said, staring at the sensor readings. "According to these scans, there's nothing there. No artificial structures, no power signatures, nothing indicating advanced civilization." "Could they have been destroyed?" Captain Miller asked. "There's no evidence of warfare or natural disaster," Lisa noted, studying the data. "It's as if they just disappeared." As they entered the Proxima Centauri system, the truth became clear. The Arcturian homeworld still existed, but it appeared abandoned. Orbital stations drifted empty. The once bustling planetary surface showed no signs of recent activity. "They left," Alan whispered. "But where did they go?" Susan ordered the ship closer to the planet. As they approached, Nicole detected faint energy readings from the surface. "There's something still active down there," she said. "It's well hidden, but definitely artificial." Alan looked at the seemingly abandoned world through the view screen. The Arcturians hadn't been destroyed. They weren't completely gone. They were hiding. And perhaps, just perhaps, someone had stayed behind. "Captain," he said, "I think we need to go down there." The landing shuttle touched down on the outskirts of what had once been the Arcturian capital city. Through the viewport, Alan saw empty buildings stretching to the horizon, their crystalline structures intact but lifeless. The city hadn't been destroyed. It had been abandoned. "Environmental readings show breathable atmosphere," Jack said, checking his instruments. "Temperature and radiation levels within human tolerances." Captain Miller nodded. "Standard protocols. Suits on. Weapons defensive only." Alan, Lisa, Nicole, and Jack joined the captain and 2 security officers as they stepped onto alien soil. Their footsteps echoed in the eerie silence of the deserted city. "It's like they just walked away," Lisa said, examining markings on a nearby building. No signs of panic or rushed evacuation. Nicole held up her scanner. "That energy signature is coming from beneath the central complex. about half a mile ahead. They made their way through the empty streets. Evidence of the Arturians' methodical departure was everywhere. Cleaned living spaces, powered-down technology, sealed containers. This wasn't just an evacuation, Alan observed. They scrubbed this place clean on purpose. The central complex loomed ahead, a spiraling tower of translucent material that caught the light of Proxima Centauri and scattered it in dazzling patterns. Inside, they found a large circular platform in the center of the main hall. "Elevator," Jack said, examining the controls. "Still powered." Captain Miller gave the order, and they descended deep below the surface. The elevator opened into a vast underground chamber filled with humming machinery. Unlike the city above, this place showed signs of recent activity. "Someone's still here," Alan whispered. As if in response to his words, a door slid open across the chamber. A figure stepped through, tall, slender, with iridescent skin and 4 articulated arms. An Arturian. Lisa gasped. In 10 years of silence, no human had seen an alien in person. "I am Zelar," the Arturian said in perfect English, "maintenance overseer and designated witness. I have been waiting for you." Alan stepped forward. "I'm Alan Carter from Earth. We came to." "I know why you came," Zeller interrupted. "You wish to understand the silence. Why the stars no longer speak to humanity." The Arturian led them to a circular room with a holographic display showing numerous star systems. "What you call the silence was a deliberate action taken by the coalition of sentient species," Zeller explained. "A vote was held. 7 civilizations in favor, 2 abstaining. The decision: complete withdrawal from all contact with humanity." "But why?" Captain Miller demanded. Zelar activated the display, showing images of Earth, wars, environmental disasters, weapons tests, resource depletion, and rapid technological advancement. "We observe your complete history, not just what you chose to share. A species that nearly destroyed itself multiple times, that continues to develop weapons of increasing power, that consumes resources at an unsustainable rate." Zeler's large eyes blinked slowly. "The coalition determined that humanity presented an unacceptable risk." "So you just left?" Lisa asked. "We implemented the veil," Zeller replied. "Technology that hides our worlds, redirects your sensors, and makes our civilizations undetectable to humans. We withdrew to safety. You feared us that much." Ellen's voice was barely audible. "Not all agreed," Zeller said. "I am part of the observer faction. We believe humanity has potential. That is why I remained, to watch, to record, and to serve as contact if you ever found your way here." Jack looked around the facility. "This place maintains the veil." "For this system, yes. Each civilization constructed similar facilities before departing." Alan stepped closer to the Arturian. "You've been watching us for 10 years since the silence. Have we given you reason to believe your colleagues were wrong about us?" Zeller was silent for a long moment. "You have not invaded or attempted to destroy this world, which some predicted, but you have continued to advance military technology. Your societies remain divided. Your journey here shows determination, but whether that quality serves peace or conquest remains uncertain." "What would it take," Alan asked, "to prove ourselves worthy of reconnection?" "That," Zeller said, "is the question the observer faction has been debating for 10 years. I cannot answer for the coalition, but your arrival here creates a new possibility. For the first time, humanity knows why the stars went silent. What you do with this knowledge will determine whether they speak again." The news reached Earth 3 years after the Discovery's landing on the Arturian homeworld. The quantum communication breakthrough that Jack and his team had developed allowed them to send the message faster than light, but the information it contained landed like a physical blow on humanity. We had not been abandoned. We had been judged and found wanting. Ellen watched from the communications center as the United Earth government released Zeller's testimony to the public. Streets filled with people staring at public screens. Some wept. Others argued fiercely. Many simply stood in silence, processing the revelation that the cosmos had deemed humanity too dangerous to know. "How are they taking it?" Lissa asked, joining him at the window. "About as well as we did," Alan replied. "Shock, denial, anger. It's the 5 stages of cosmic rejection." President Diaz called for a global summit 1 week later. Representatives from every nation gathered in the new Geneva complex to determine humanity's response. Alan and his team were asked to present their findings directly to the assembly. The vast chamber fell silent as Alan approached the podium. "Distinguished leaders," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "For 15 years, we've searched for answers about why the stars went silent. Now we know. The civilizations we once spoke with fear us. They see in humanity not a friend, but a potential conqueror or destroyer." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "Are we to accept this judgment?" A representative from the African Union demanded. "We have as much right to the stars as they do." "This is outrageous," added another voice. "We shared knowledge, culture. We never threatened them." Lisa stepped forward. "With respect, they didn't judge us on our first contact protocols. They judged us on our entire history." She displayed images from Earth's past and present: wars, environmental destruction, inequality. This is what they saw. The chamber grew uncomfortably quiet. Nicole took her turn at the podium. "We have a choice to make. We can react with indignation and prove their fears correct, or we can see this as an opportunity for reflection and change." Jack joined them. "The technology to find and potentially penetrate the veil is within our reach. We could develop it, assert our presence whether they want it or not. But should we?" The debate raged for days. Some nations advocated for aggressive space exploration and military readiness. Others argued for respecting the aliens' wishes and focusing on Earth's problems. Scientists pushed for technological solutions while philosophers questioned whether humanity needed to fundamentally change before reaching outward again. On the summit's final day, Alan was called back to the podium. "Mr. Carter," President Diaz said, "you've spent more time thinking about this than anyone. What do you recommend?" Alan looked out at the expectant faces. "When I first learned why the stars went silent, I felt shame, then anger. But now, I see it differently. The coalition didn't destroy us when they could have. The observer faction still watches, still hopes we might change. They've given us a rare gift, a mirror held up to our civilization, and the chance to look at our reflection honestly." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I proposed Project Redemption. Not a military mission, not a technological quick fix, but a fundamental revaluation of what humanity wants to become. If we wish to rejoin the community of intelligent life, we must prove through actions, not words, that we deserve a place there." The assembly buzzed with conversation. Some nodded in agreement, others frowned with skepticism. "What would this Project Redemption entail?" President Diaz asked. "Environmental restoration, peaceful resolution of conflicts, sustainable development, equitable distribution of resources." Ellen looked around the room. "The very things we've claimed to value but have struggled to achieve. We must become the civilization we've always aspired to be." After 3 more days of intense discussion, the global summit reached its decision. Project Redemption would begin, humanity's most ambitious undertaking, not to conquer the stars, but to earn their trust. As the summit concluded, Alan looked up at the night sky. The stars remained silent, watching and waiting. 25 years after the silence, Alan Carter stood on the observation platform of the New Harmony Tower in what had once been called New York City. At 87, his movements were slower, but his eyes remained sharp as he gazed at the transformed cityscape below. Vertical gardens covered the sides of buildings. Electric transport pods moved silently along designated pathways. In the distance, the harbor gleamed clean in the morning light, schools of fish visible in the clear water. "The latest broadcast package is ready for review," said Nicole, now in her 70s, but still heading the communication team. Her tablet displayed the content scheduled for transmission to the stars. "Let's see it," Alan said, lowering himself carefully onto a bench. The screen showed footage from across Earth, former deserts blooming with carefully engineered plant life, once polluted rivers running clear, fusion power plants replacing the last of the fossil fuel facilities. One segment highlighted the Global Peace Accord's 20-year anniversary, with footage of former conflict zones now transformed into thriving communities. "Do you think they're watching?" Nickel asked, the question they all still carried after all these years. Alan smiled gently. Zeller said they would. Project Redemption had transformed human civilization more profoundly than anyone had expected. The initial sacrifices, reduced consumption, resource redistribution, dismantling of military complexes, had given way to innovations born of necessity. Clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and medical advances had created prosperity without the environmental costs of the past. Each month for 25 years, Earth had been broadcasting its progress to the silent stars. The 5 Voyager ships maintained their positions at the edges of former contact systems, transmitting evidence of humanity's transformation. Jack Peterson joined them on the platform, leaning heavily on his cane. The quantum fluctuation detectors picked up something interesting last night. Elan raised an eyebrow. "From the veil." "Possibly." Jack handed him a datapad. "These readings suggest microscopic adjustments in the energy field surrounding the Arturian system." "They're watching," Nickel whispered. "Or at least checking," Jack cautioned. "The changes are subtle, like someone lifting a corner of a curtain for a quick peek." Elan nodded thoughtfully. "After all this time, we finally caught them looking." The observation didn't generate the excitement it might have years ago. Early in Project Redemption, humanity had desperately sought signs that their efforts were being noticed. Gradually, they had learned patience. Later that day, Alan addressed the Project Redemption Council, the global body overseeing Earth's transformation. "For 25 years, we've sent messages into silence," he told the assembled representatives. "We've changed not for them, but for ourselves. The civilization we've built is stronger, more just, and more sustainable than what came before." Council leader Maria Reis nodded in agreement. Project Redemption has succeeded regardless of whether the stars speak again. "But they are watching," Alan insisted, sharing Jack's data. "The veil fluctuations have increased by 12% over the past year. Something is happening." The Council authorized increased monitoring resources for the detector network. If the aliens were indeed paying attention, Earth wanted to be ready for any response. That evening, Alan sat in his garden overlooking the city. His granddaughter Elisa, who had followed in his footsteps to become a communications specialist, joined him. "Grandpa, do you still believe they'll talk to us again?" she asked. Alan looked up at the stars appearing in the twilight sky. "I believe they're considering it. But even if they never do, look what we've accomplished." He gestured to the peaceful city below. "We set out to prove ourselves worthy of rejoining the community of intelligent life. Along the way, we became the people we always should have been." Elisa squeezed his hand. "The next broadcast goes out tomorrow. I added a message from the children of New Harmony School." "What does it say?" "We're still here. We're still listening. We hope you're still watching." Alan smiled as the stars brightened above them. Silent, but perhaps not for much longer. Paul Carter stood where his grandfather had stood so many times before, in the central broadcasting chamber of the Global Communications Array. At 32, he bore a striking resemblance to Alan Carter in his younger days. The same determined eyes, the same quiet intensity. 50 years had passed since the silence began. 2 generations had grown up never knowing a world where humans spoke with the stars. Project Redemption had transformed from an ambitious initiative into a way of life. The changes made to prove humanity's worth to distant watchers had become the foundation of Earth's new civilization. "Routine broadcast sequence initiating," announced the system's calm voice. Every week for 50 years, Earth had sent updates into space, evidence of continued progress, peaceful development, and the hope for renewed contact. Paul nodded to his team. Let's begin. The massive array powered up, directing its signal toward the 5 systems, where alien civilizations had once spoken with humanity. Paul's team had modernized the equipment over the years, but the message remained consistent. We are still here. We have changed. We are listening. An hour into the broadcast, a technician called out, "Sir, we're receiving a response signal." The room fell silent. False alarms had happened before, usually natural phenomena or equipment glitches. "Source?" Paul asked, keeping his voice steady. "Proxima Centauri system. It matches Arcturian communication protocols." "Heart pounding," Paul ordered. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and a single word appeared, written in Arcturian script, but translatable by their systems. Continuing. After 50 years of silence, the stars had spoken. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. People gathered in homes and public spaces, waiting for more information. The single word was analyzed by linguists and scientists, its authenticity confirmed through multiple verification methods. 3 days later, a longer message arrived. Observer faction request dialogue resumption. Coalition divided. Continuing assessment. Olivia Wright's granddaughter Maya, now Earth's lead xenolinguist, explained the significance. "They're telling us that while some aliens want to talk to us again, others remain unconvinced. This isn't full reconnection. It's an opening." Over the following months, communication slowly expanded. First with the Arcturians, then cautiously with the Melusians and Rigilians. 4 species maintained their silence. 6 months after the first response, a transmission arrived containing coordinates for a meeting location, a neutral system between Earth and Proxima Centauri. The UES Harmony, Earth's newest diplomatic vessel, made the journey. Hall Carter led the human delegation, carrying with him his grandfather's journal and a lifetime of preparation for this moment. In orbit around an uninhabited planet, the Harmony received visitors, 3 Arcturians, including Zeller, older but recognizable, came aboard. "We have been watching," Zeller said, after formal greetings were exchanged. "For 50 years, we have observed your transformation." "Not everyone believes it is genuine," added another Arcturian named Velar. "Some in the coalition fear this is merely a performance to regain our trust." Paul nodded. "We understand their concerns. The changes we've made weren't just for show. They became necessary for our survival and have improved life for all humans. We changed because we needed to, not just to impress you." "That," Zeller said, "is precisely why some of us believe in your transformation. True change comes from within, not from external pressure alone." The meeting lasted for hours. The aliens explained that the coalition remained divided, some species ready to reconnect, others still wary. The observer faction had gradually gained influence as evidence of Earth's transformation mounted. "Not all will choose to emerge from behind the veil," Zeller explained. "But a path has opened. A possibility exists that was not there before." As the meeting concluded, Paul looked out at the stars visible through the ship's viewport, stars that were no longer completely silent. "My grandfather spent his life hoping for this moment," he told Zeller. "He believed humanity could earn back the trust we lost." "Your grandfather was wise," Zeller replied. "He understood something crucial, that sometimes one must walk away from the stars to truly see them clearly." That evening, Paul wrote in his own journal, continuing the record his grandfather had begun 50 years earlier. "Today, we learned that the universe wasn't silent because we couldn't hear. It was silent because we hadn't learned how to listen. Now, slowly, conversation by conversation, we are finding our voice again among the stars."